almost 4,000 people are sleeping rough in England on any given night. That's a 10% increase in 1 year. That's according to the homeless charity Shelter. However, in a recent poll, just 14% of people said that they would give cash directly to a homeless person. Now, the charities are split on this issue. The Salvation Army has said that handing over cash on the street risks trapping people in an endless cycle of homelessness. But a boss at St Mungo's says that it's an opportunity for human interaction and can alleviate the immediate pressures of life on the street. Now, Andy, you've got some experience with this.
Yes. I have been genuinely, authentically homeless in my life. After Big Brother, actually, I was homeless for a few months. But luckily, I had friends who were willing to put me up while I was getting myself back on my feet. But when I was a journalist in Northern Ireland, I spent a few days, quote unquote, undercover with the homeless community. It was a difficult thing to do because I was effectively having to pretend to be homeless, which morally was quite tough, to be quite honest. But I didn't accept money from people that didn't go straight to charity, and I tried not to accept donations. But one of the things that really, really struck me was the sense of community amongst the homeless in Belfast during these very cold months. But also I remember one time I was sitting in the doorway of a nightclub, and it was the time when people were walking back, you know, from work. And people were walking past with their suits and jackets and their briefcases and various different things. And not one of them looked me in the eye. Not one of them offered to kind of, here's a 20p or 50p or anything. But during the daytime, when all of those people were working in their offices with their salaried jobs, people who clearly didn't have 2 pennies to rub together would come over and they'd be trying to give me £10 notes, £20 notes. The difference in the generosity of people who've known hardship and people who maybe haven't so much was really striking and moving for me. And that's why I always try to be someone, even if I haven't got change on me, which often I don't these days, even don't be embarrassed to look someone in the eye and smile and say, I'm sorry I haven't got any change today, because that's almost as valuable. So I do give money, and if I don't have money, I look someone in the eye and I smile.
I mean, that's a really nice thing, I suppose, for us all to be aware of. But when it comes to giving cash directly to a homeless person, how do you feel about it, Lynn?
I personally wouldn't. Whenever I see homeless people, if time permits, as much as possible, I will say the two things that I offer, working in housing for the length of time I have and actually managing a caseload of over 200 homeless people that actually have properties but choose not to live in them. I would offer them food, or I would offer to take them at a choice if they have some sort of contact, or I can say, give them a time and date. I will meet you outside of your council. We can get you somewhere warm to stay. Since the Homelessness Reduction Act of 2018, every council has a duty of care to be able to house that person, even if it's for that night or indefinitely, even if it's temporary accommodation.
But hold on, if they've already got properties, they obviously don't want to be indoors.
I'll get into that. And I don't mean to try and demean or, you know, their situation. Many of these people are vulnerable. They suffer with substance misuse and mental health. However, I have to say it is a choice oftentimes. We have to recently in the council serve public order notices where, I don't know if you've seen many people gathering now under overpasses, in parks with tents, and we have to ensure that they're moved on. But we don't just say, get away. We say, we want to provide housing to you. You can't stay here. But this is the proviso. You have to accept that you have to undergo a program to get clean or to get help, and you cannot have the substances in the temporary accommodation. Then they refuse it. They oftentimes say, if we have to get clean or we can't take our drugs into the properties that you're providing, we don't want it.
Okay, from my knowledge of the homeless community, oftentimes people become homeless and then become addicted because of being on the streets and being in that environment, and for it being such a horrible experience, just to spend 5 minutes out of it, I suppose, is the appeal. But that sounds like an awful lot more work, Lynn, than just giving somebody £5, £10, a pound. Why would you not give cash?
The reason for that is because I grew up in Tottenham, and the pipeline of maybe, I'm not saying this is for everybody as well, but for many people where there was a high level of mental health in Tottenham, of smoking skunk and then to cocaine connected to homelessness, many people, when you sit down with them and have that conversation, they would have wished that, yes, they wanted the money for their next fix, but that next fix got them in another loop to not try and rectify their... So that's why I would say, are you hungry? Can I buy you maybe a blanket from the local shop?
I have to just push back a little bit against, there's so often this narrative of, I don't give homeless people money because they don't really need it. They've got a house, or they're actually just collecting money for, you know, another...
I didn't say that, though.
No, I know you
Right.
didn't. But I must, in my experience, actually, yes, of course, there are people who are choosing because they're addicted and they don't want to be part of the system, or for some people, it's a political decision, I don't want to be part of the system. There is that. But in my experience, the majority of people are homeless. They've been kicked out of their house, for instance, because they're gay, or because they've had a divorce, or they've lost their job. There are lots of different reasons why you can end up homeless. I don't see myself, when I'm walking down the street, wanting to question someone as to why they're homeless. I don't care.
Yeah,
if they need a couple of quid, I'll give them a couple of quid. And if that helps to keep them, if that helps to give them some food, or give them a rest for the night, or keep them warm, or damn it, buy themselves a bottle of whiskey, then fine.
All right. Let's go to the calls then. Elizabeth from Leeds, what's your view on this?
Oh, hello there. Good morning.
Hi.
Oh, nearly afternoon.
That's all right.
I'd like to agree with you gentlemen on the panel.
Andy.
I'm sorry I didn't catch his name.
Andy.
Andy. Because, look, I live in a big city, Leeds, and more and more people are now, you know, on the ground, cold and hungry. It's just appalling. And I give when I can, but I'll also go buy, say, a hot sandwich from Greg's or something like that. And I will give cash. And what I really want to stress is we can't assume that they are, you know, addicts. We just can't assume this. And if an addict chooses to spend the £10 or whatever on a quick fix, that's their choice, and it's my choice as an adult to give. Because somebody who's not homeless can get their fix. You know, why should they not be able to have temporary release? Just one second.
Okay.
But I also give information about warm spaces and where they can go. And there's a charity in Leeds called Street Angels, and they go around the city at night when it's got cold and dark, and they literally look after people. Come with us, we'll get you somewhere warm for the evening, give you a hot meal. And that is where we have to be at. Like Andy said, there are many, many reasons why you might find yourself homeless. I mean, the level of evictions from private rented is phenomenal.
If you'll let me come in here, there are a large proportion of people who are sleeping rough who do have addictions, whether that came after they became homeless or whether that was the reason for being homeless. I mean, I suppose in this situation doesn't really matter. Both you and Andy have said that if you give somebody £5 and they use that to get a fix on something, you don't mind. That's fine. That's their choice because we have choice, even though it is illegal. But Elizabeth, what if you later found out that that £5 that you gave that individual gave them the fix that ended up killing them?
Well, that's a bit extreme. I'm unlikely to find out, aren't I?
You are unlikely
about that
to find out, but there is always a chance.
There's a possibility.
Yes, but Storm, when I worked in housing, I remember housing a young man who was very, very vulnerable, very, very alone. He had nobody except the housing support team, of which I was one. I went into his flat one morning to check on him, and he was dead. But he wasn't homeless. You see, people who are not homeless are also addicts. This is the matter, and the evictions from private rental. There's so many reasons, but I also give the advice as well as the £10.
And what if? And I suppose, you know, to stand up for Elizabeth, what if that £5 saved that person's life? You know, I mean, what we don't know, and that's the point, we don't know the impact that money may or may not have on that individual's life. The point is, I don't believe any human being actually is born with a psychology of wanting to live in the cold under a bridge, in the rain, freezing. or addicted to drugs for that matter. You're addicted to drugs and homeless because your life has fallen apart, and therefore I want to help support
Not
them.
always.
Okay.
Not always.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for your call. Christine from Lancashire, what's your view on giving rough sleepers cash?
I do occasionally give people cash, but I have found that when I go to the supermarket, I always talk to the person there and I always ask them what they would like, because I think it's very important for them to choose, not to be given.
Yeah.
I've never, ever had anybody ask me for alcohol. It's usually a sandwich or a cup of coffee or something.
Something
I
more?
also do give occasionally cash. Have the same worry that they could be using it for alcohol. However, in Burnley, Lancashire, they tell me there is a place where if they can get £14.50, they can get a bed for the night. So I usually give them a couple of pounds because they can't get very addicted on that. And if some more kind people, I usually say, hope you get your target. And that's the way I deal with it.
Christine, it's a very good point. Again, as Auntie says, that could be the fiver that's contributed to the £14.50 that they need to sleep in a warm place, and that could be what they're using it for, in which case, of course, everybody would give. Christine, thank you very much for your call. Marion from Glasgow, what's your view on this?
Excuse me. Recently, I was out shopping, and one of the magazine sellers, who I always give to, I never take a magazine, but I always give them a couple of pounds. And I said to the lady, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash on me." And she said, "Oh, if you just take your card inside, they'll give you cash back." And I was really quite appalled, actually. I thought, that's a wee bit cheeky, to be honest with you.
Well, she was giving you a solution to your cashless problem, Marion. I mean, she's got a job to do. She's selling her magazine.
I've got other cashless problems that I wish somebody would give me a solution to.
Well,
however, I was quite annoyed about that. I thought, no, that's not right, because historically I've always given them cash, and then somebody said, don't do that. Go and get them a coffee or a sandwich or something. So I've done that, and I've felt fine about that. But when she said, just go in there and get money out, I feel like hitting her hen.
That's because.
Please don't do that, Marion. There's no need for that.
No,
but
not
you've
at all.
got. If you see it from her perspective, she's just trying to sell her magazines. She needs to get cash, and so she's just trying to help you. If indeed that is what you wanted to do, I don't know. But Marion, thank you very much for your call. Graham from Perth, what's your view on this?
Well, I worked for I won't say who, with the homeless for 17 years in a men's hostel, and I think it's totally wrong to categorise like that. I didn't get the gentleman's name.
Andy.
Pardon?
Andy.
They all have drug problems, and they all have alcohol problems. The majority is family breakdown coming out of prison. Relationship breakdowns, can't afford rent, being evicted. There's a myriad of reasons, and the majority of them aren't on drugs and alcohol. And even if they were, you giving them some money is probably going to cut down on one crime. And they're not going to have to muck somebody. They're not going to have to go into a shop to shoplift or something.
That's actually maybe a very good defence for giving cash too. Graham, thank you very much for your call. Just to clear it up, Andy didn't say that they were all on alcohol and drugs. That wasn't what we said. I said there was a high proportion of homeless people that do have addiction issues. But again, as you said, we don't know whether that comes before or after, and it'll be a mixture. Depending on their circumstances, but for sure there are lots of different reasons why somebody becomes homeless and ends up having to sleep on the streets. But your points are very interesting. Thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on that.